Actually, come to talk to staff.
Okay. But only for part one. Yeah, okay, that's clear. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, and to those who might be joining us virtually, welcome to this morning's employee committee. Important aspect of the conversations business that we conducted this morning. I'm going to take the order slightly differently, but perhaps let's just okay. Words needing to be said because we're online, obviously that doesn't apply to work. We had the minutes of our meeting of the 25th of July. Are we comfortable with those? For accuracy, have to rise on those.
I wasn't present, so
And that's fine. Eyes was nodding. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Good.
And Chairman, to know Steve Jones' apologies, and we've got Sanderson concerning stuff. Just to know.
That's lovely. You want the blood committee to be optimised, and it is. So, good. So, brilliant. That's so we will we'll actually change the order slightly from 2 to 3 first, which will be the salary review from April 23, not April 24, just for clarification, for executive directors, directors and heads of services. That's the senior echelon, approximately 8,000 employees of the Kent Council, and there are approximately 200 who fall into this category of senior management team, excluding the chief executive, whose remuneration we will be looking at over the same time period in the next agenda item, and at which point the chief executive will go. Will leave us whilst we talk about through. If you'd like to introduce the papers, that would be Sally Hopper, Director of Resources. You could just over that, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So, if I may begin by formally declaring my interest, because any decision or conversation relating to this item does, by its very nature, involve including me as a director. So, please may I formally log that declaration of interest. Having done so, the matter of senior salaries is a matter that is in our constitution for the employment committee, and this is for our staff that are on level 50 right up to 20 for the purposes of this paper. So as you can see in this item, that's for all directors and executive directors and heads of service. And we had taken a decision some time ago in Hertfordshire Council to have our decision-making process around senior pay. So what that means is we don't necessarily completely mirror the National Job Council. That being said, we do pay attention to what they do. And therefore, that has the NJC, the reason the paper is coming in November is we've been waiting for them to work out what they're doing. So they offered initially the NJC to the core workforce, so all of our workforce in levels 1 to 14, initially £1,925. And it's by pure coincidence that that's actually like a committee agreed yesterday. So that's agreed on a national level, and the indicative announcement of that came yesterday. And indeed, most of our workforce will be advised of that today. But what the NJC are doing means that that decision will be backdated to the 1st of April 2023. And then it then leaves employment committee to decide, okay, so noting that, what do we do with the rest of the workforce, the rest of the directors, heads of service, executive directors? In what to do, we, as you would expect at this time, have considered external factors. And those external factors are set out in the paper if you look at 7.3, where you can see that the median-based pay award is around as close to 5%, up from 3.2% in 2022. And then the private sector, which we benchmark with, the median basic pay is 6%. In 7.2 in the paper, just before that, we also note we do pay attention to the fact that in years like in other, there has been industrial unrest nationally. So it's been a year where we've had uncertainty. A lot of our partners are every day because they have had industrial action and that has doubts affected some of the activity that we do. So noting those external contexts, we then also looked at the what we put in the budget, as you would expect. And I'm pleased to say that our Director of Finance in Section 151 Officer Stephen Pillsworth is here today. He doesn't attend the Employment Committee, but what I can tell you is it has made provision of 4% in the budget for all salaries for this financial year. So in terms of the financial implications of this, whichever option is taken, I'm pleased to give assurance to the committee that it's covered with the financial implications. So then that then turns into the couple of options that we have set out for the Employment Committee to consider. And in making those options, I think it was important to note as well that what have others done closer to home. So Essex County Council, I am able to confirm, have did their senior leadership cohort 4%, and Norfolk County Council have gone with 3.88%. So as per option 2 of the paper we have before you today. So noting those that context, and also the final point that I'll make on this matter in particular is that when we did future work just implemented from the 1st of October 2022, we sought to bring the pay up to a medium. So we did lots of market testing and we worked very thoroughly, as you'd expect, to make sure that only pay frequent work, but we also have, we are the median of the market because we want to attract, retain and attract colleagues. And noting all of those points, it then leads me to say that we need to pay attention to that because we work quite hard to get to that median. And it does feel very small. In other words, we don't want to fall behind the market in thinking through what decision we take. So with all of those points, it now leads me to ask inviting questions and also to seek Employment Committee's view on whether you wish to go with option 1 or option 2. Option 1 is the 1925 paid to all levels, and option 2 is that we will pay 3.88% to all of them. Thank you, Jim.
That's really helpful, Sally. I think that's quite clearly. I think it's been helpful. But well, first of all, let's recognise, just really pleased that 1925 has been accepted for a couple of reasons. One, it's a decent pay rise for most of our employees. And it's particularly welcome, I think, for those who are on some of the lowest pay. It's a good uplift. And I think that would be most welcome at this time of cost of living increases. And secondly, it's backdated to April 23, early this year, which means that all of our pay structures and our pay offers that we can recruit into, trying to retain staff, they will kick in. And again, lower down the pay scale, more important that's going to be. The point you put before us is that for those that are at the top end of the scale, as in percentage terms, it starts to fall behind. It did last year when 1925 was offered. 1925 is being offered again this year. It starts to fall behind, which means that our senior team, who are no more or no less important than anybody who works for this organisation, but their pay starts to fall behind, as you put it, Sally, median. My view would be that we go for 3.88%, which I think, bearing in mind inflation last year was running at 11%, and this year is running at about 5 or 6 or 7%, probably the average is out over the year, probably at least 6 or 7%, actually, I'd say the average thing over the year, I think is appropriate, and seems to be in line with what other councils are doing. So that's my reflection on it. Colleagues, any comments, any further comments? So
I'd like a clarification, and I'd also like them to make a comment. Thank you for that. When you said there's a 4% provision in the budget, do you mean 4% on the pay on all the whole salary bill, or do you mean 4% of the senior, the cohort we're talking about?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So to clarify, we've allowed 4% for the entire salary budget for the whole of this year. That's the expectation that we forecast.
Okay, sorry, can I check? Can I? Yeah. So if that's 4% of the whole total, and some of the people on the lower bands are getting just under 10%, how does that feed through? Because I think somewhere else in the paper it says that there was a differential of 200,000 approximately for the two. So which is budgeted?
Yeah, so basically the 4% has been, when we knew, when we did the integrated plan last November, as far back as last November, we had just come out, we were on the coattails of the 1925, which at that time we thought, well, that's probably going to repeat itself this year. So that being so, the average, when you add up all the salaries, so you get a higher percentage at the lower end of the workforce, and obviously it goes, we've averaged that at 4%. So that 4% is across the whole of the pay bill, just to really clarify that point. Then when we're thinking about your next point, which I think was, has the £200,000 in quote, absolutely, it's important that the employment committee know that if you decide option 1925, vis-a-vis option 2, 3.88%, it does put it's £200,000 more expensive. So just to be clear, but we felt it was important to keep the options there. And it's also important to know that is in the budget, and that is in the budget that's been presented.
Okay,
Both
so
figures are in the budget. Both figures are in the budget.
sorry, just to be really clear, so the higher figure is in the budget.
Absolutely.
You went for option 1,
Yes,
then there would be a same picture.
that's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Janet. I would just like to recognise the hard work that absolutely everybody, contributes to this organisation, right from profit and the care workers right up to the chief executive. So the comments I'm about to make have no reflection on any of the contributions that anybody's making. Really welcome that you have, that we look at equal pay for equal work. And I think that needs to be ongoing, separate from what we're talking about now. As a matter of principle, I'm going to propose that we go for option 1, because I think it's entirely consistent across the whole organisation. Everybody has, at the current time, the same pay increase, and that benefits the people on the lowest pay to the greatest extent. These are the people in our society who are suffering the most, who are implicated, who have to bear the costs of higher energy costs, higher food costs, all the other costs that we're bear more heavily on the lower paid than paid. And if I just flip that around the other way, I think it's inconsistent to take that as a point of principle up to level 15 and then abandon it and say, actually above level 15, we're going to go for a percentage increase. So I think as a matter of consistency, it should be applied through the whole organisation. I'd also just like to note that if you apply a 3.8% increase to every pay scale, obviously that's a much higher pay. That gap changes over years. So it embeds it. I agree, don't want to get left behind, but it actually embeds higher pay into the organisation and actually enlarges the gaps and increases the inequality between the highest and the lowest paid in any organisation. And I think as a country, we should be striving to reduce that, because we all know that high levels of inequality in pay lead to discontent and unequal societies. So for those reasons, I'm going to propose that we support option 1.
Thank you, Sally.
Yeah, if I could just say, the Labour votes to support option, we support option 1. I take what you said, it talks about all our hard-working staff, the 8,000 staff. It was good that Sal said the 1925 has been accepted, and we think that also it should be across the board. What we don't make now is the important senior officers do, it's a service, etc. But I think that key point, actually, Sally's taken off under, but the key point is that it would, the gap if you do it on percentage wise, well, the 3.8 taking gap is top and I think it's time anyway this year with cost of living prices. It's not the time to do that, so I think it's good that everybody saying that's liquidity, but those at the top. Yeah, clearly, it would make a lot of difference for everyone. So they can't see it in at this time. This is not against the future levels, everything else that's really down. I think it's just this time is right. I think set off through 1925 possible.
So Labour Democrats and Labour are proposing that it's the 1925, same as last year. Yeah, so the percentage term, senior starting last year, gone backwards by about, probably about 8 or 9%. We're advocating that they should go back probably another 5 or 6% this year as well. Okay, fine. That's a perfectly understandable view. Any comments from? You don't have to,
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Sally, for the paper. Yes, I thought maybe I might just start by just making a very general observation, Sally, which you could take opportunity to. It's been very well documented in the press that some other councils have got themselves into a pickle on some pay issues, particularly female pay issues and things like that. But can I just take the opportunity to have you confirm or not that this council has not placed any of those, well, just generally a little pickles?
So I think that the matter that Member Deal refers to is well documented around Birmingham, and the absolute an immense amount of work they're having to grapple with right now around equal pay, which is historical claims which have cost them dear, both emotionally and financially. Like any large organisation, we were very keen to ensure that we had good governance around that pay. And that's why I was very pleased to get permission from the Employment Committee some years ago now to do future workforce. And with the support of the leadership team here, we have done a wholesale review of the pay. So to answer your question, the health of the scheme is good. I would suggest, having been through the rigor of external strengthening the employment law, but never are we complacent. So I hope that's helpful. And that review, for the sake of the record, was completed, started in 2019 and was completed in 2022.
Thank you so much. I know that's not suggested, but given that we're being looked at, it's had the opportunity to leverage things. Very stable. I think we should slightly congratulate ourselves. That's very, very good. Coming back to the agenda, which obviously one understands what Sally said. This council has actually got quite a good record of improving pay for the lower paid those in terms of our own staff and externally. We've done the best we can to make sure that external care workers receive more than the basic living wage and that type of thing. I know you're on the track of that. So the concept of this is going to schools. Nevertheless, we do operate in the marketplace and we must have senior executives. And I might just say that my experience of salary management, I receive vast number of briefings. All the time briefings, literally receive vast numbers of briefings. We absolutely need our senior executive essential. That's not to say that every other staff is essential. I couldn't say that essential. So really, another question for Sally. Given that we do work in a competitive market, we have, for example, just recruited a very senior executive from Essex. If we were to go for auction, what's your judgment as to where that would leave us in the marketplace in terms of our attractiveness as an employer of senior executives?
So nobody should be in any doubt that we are on record, and it's historically known that we do pay less in the senior community than, say, for example, Essex. So that's factually correct. So when one considers that they are, I think it's important members making informed consideration of this matter know that if one thinks about Essex increasing by 4%, then that gap would get wider. And I quote them for a reason, because they are one of our competitors, one of our neighbours, and they would quite easily staff campaign from one to the other. So to answer your question, that nobody should really doubt that the 1925 on average is going to be between 2 and 1%. For our community that we're talking about, small and senior leadership team. So you can fathom that means that gap is now increased. So that's point one I'd like to make. And then the second point is that we are known to not be the highest paid sector. We don't compete with the likes of, say, for example, just to give a tangible example, when we went out for the growth director, the most recent executive director that we appointed, straight away in conversations with the recruitment agency, both myself and the chief executive were informed that we were lower quartile, really. Now, what did we do about that? We went into the campaign knowing that, and we worked hard on the campaign, and I'm delighted to say we could secure a candidate. But it is important to know that when we consider the materials we're working with this morning, certainly we're medium because of future workforce. We're certainly nowhere near Essex, so it's worth noting that, I think, in terms of our attraction strategy. And I suppose the other consideration that's worth taking into account, again declaring interest in this role, is that the figure last year was a lower percentage for work. And I think it's important to know that because when the NJC last year did the 1925 for colleagues from the whole of the NJC pay table, if you're at the top of that pay table, it was obviously less in percentage terms. So they got some feedback this year on that point. And to combat that feedback this year, if you're right at the top of the NJC pay table, so sticking with that, not seeing leaders, they are giving them the 3.8%, which is where that figure came from. I think that's a really important context, because otherwise you might just plug that and so to really just hold that thought, that's what they've done with those. Then when we turn our attention to where I started this committee this morning, predates me that employment committee and officers chose to come out of NJC for senior officers. But it would be failing this morning if I didn't say that the NJC do still have some senior officers in their community. They still have some people that sign up to it. I think Norfolk is actually a great example. So they are therefore have to abide by what's come out of that. And I just feel it's important to remind you, so you can make an informed decision on this matter, that they are settled at 3.8%. So that figure is run true it's generalisable to the NJC decision for this community, were we to be part of that, but to be superhuman members, they're not formally in that. So I don't want to mislead you. So, Chairman, I hope that's helpful. Bigger context, because obviously we're working with really complex decisions. So.
No, absolutely. That's great. And I welcome the contributions from Sally, and I welcome contributions from Bob and Sally for providing some context there. And the 3.88 not to be plucked out of thin air, but actually being a consistent figure, not just within our cohort, but across the region. I think probably going up that country, that's really real. I don't think we can handbag or reference Essex any longer. Otherwise, it's going to be an us and Essex thing, and I don't want that going on. I don't think that's helpful at all. But it is a very competitive market. Top people, we know that. Absolutely know that, because we're recruiting from that market at the time. And whilst pay isn't always the main driver of why somebody comes and works for Hertfordshire County Council, it's got to be reasonable. I think so. I think understanding as well that the NHS have just had an uplift for their senior staff of about 5.5%. And I have to say, some of our people, particularly in social care, are in exactly the same market. NHS pays better than local government anyway. We just heard that Hertfordshire pays less than other counties. So I think we could get ourselves really into quite some serious trouble if our senior team starts to feel undervalued. I think rather than focusing on the inequality, the value of the contribution made by that senior cohort, who in the current environment are genuinely having to work strategically and literally many more hours than they probably have to normally. These are relatively difficult times. Last year, as I say, was a 1925 across the board. I think if we were to do that again this year, we would be setting ourselves up for trouble next year in terms of determining the pay review across all of our staff. And I think dealing with it this year and in a way that you have clearly thought through is my recommendation that actually that we proceed with this. And I now realise I forgot to get to Fiona to get her views, so I shall now go to Fiona to a thought.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Sally, for your presenting the facts so clearly. It's been really helpful. Very pleased that 1925 has been good on a national scale. And within the report, 8.1, the local authority pay comparisons, that's incredibly helpful to see where Hertfordshire County Council sits in comparison to other authorities. And we're absolutely ready to get hung up on what other authorities are doing. However, we need to remain competitive, and certainly at director level. We want to attract people to come work in the county council. We have a huge range of talent. We don't want to lose talent, and that goes with all of our work section. So I think this is it's a difficult, it's challenging to know. Okay, if you look at option one, as you articulated, Sally, that is in line with the other period for staff. However, I think the impact on our director level, in addition to that which happened last year, we run a risk of potentially using them. So I think on balance, I would be minded to put option two for the reason I think that sorry, and mentioned articulated.
I don't know the spoken, Chair, but thank you very much. Just about one thoughts into conversation, which is the central London, for the big jobs in central London. It's just personally in the train. Certainly the senior officers that I have seen regularly, big audience interest in some of the city.
Yes, that does.
And then just, if I might come in, Chair, just to remind everybody, so the heads of services and things. So I know it's been a lot of activities, and rightly so, but I also want to draw attention to the fact that this is level 15 heads of services work. So that's
Yes, Sally, and then I think we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I just thank you, Sally. I wanted to come back on that, and I know there's been a bit of talk about this. If we can disaggregate, and I did sort of allude to this about the equal pay for equal work. I think it might be, and I don't know where all these figures come from, but I can see table 8.1, I've noticed this before. So the executive directors, we have a much larger range than the median, basically on either side of that. At director level, we are basically like a category or whatever down is on the median, and again, heads of service. So I guess my request, and I appreciate that, we're not the administration here, but my request is that actually we disaggregate what the actual pay, not the gender, we disaggregate what the pay increases from actually making sure that we do have equal pay for equal jobs, and all these things are in line for the argument that everybody's using, which is that we need to pay people. But that's done as an assessment of their job, not by escalating pay increases every year, which, as we all know, as compound interest is just going to widen the discrepancy between the lowest amount.
So I think I'd have to get a clarification on what you're saying, because I thought that's what we did last year.
No, so let's be clear. So this purpose of bringing these matters to you today is, if I may detach it and pay for me, because that's a very separate subject, and I can give members absolute assurance that that's what the work did. And if I
That was established on tape, as I said, that was what we.
So what that does is just to give a very small brief point about the work, it looks at the size of the job using a job evaluation scheme and the weight of the job. It takes personalities out of it, job titles out of it, they're not interested. It's really about the weight of the job, and that's what determines whether it's a level 14 or a level 20. So let me give members great assurance that that's very much covered through the framework of work. Then turning attention to today, of course, it's okay, now we've landed on the base of favourite work, and what should we do about the things we're grappling with, living inflation and remaining an attractive employer. And so that's when we turn our attentions to this being the cost of living increase, and what to do about that. So I hope that helps to give you some clarity that the focus of today is absolutely on the cost of living. And making sure that, having done all of that work and done market testing, which we did for all jobs, and having openly said to the workforce and unions that we're a mid-payer, so we're not lower quartile, we're upper quartile, we're an equal payer, and getting their agreement to be such. This is just making sure that we maintain the health of our scheme, actually. This is what this is about.
That's understood. Okay, that's really good. Thank you for some comments and I do think we need to value the work that was done last year and bring pain to the organisation actually, and at some significant cost. The way we work, the evaluating everyone's roles, making sure there was consistency across the organisation, working with the unions, getting their agreement. And putting in about 8 million into everybody's pay pack, not everybody's pay pack, no, we've got 8 million pay, right? I mean, across the organisation, helped enormously many people. And as Bob was referring to, meant that we avoided the situation that Birmingham was found itself in by not addressing these issues. So I'm really pleased we did that. And this, having established that is the value based on various bandings, this is a way of maintaining that, and in a very appropriate way, I think, bearing in mind the current levels of inflation, and also bearing in mind, as I said earlier, the current pay rises that are going on in our competitor organisations. So, Deborah, if I'm then, can I ask? So, probably without further ado, recommendation from the to you is that we accept the pay rise of 3.8%. Option 2. Do I need to put that to the vote? Very happy to. Let's put that to the vote then. Okay, so those in favour. Yep. Yeah, great. Thank you. That's against. That's against.
It's waiting for the question.
So that's against. There we are. Okay, that's good. Very, very helpful debate because it sets us up nicely for a completely different debate now about the executive, which is now having to leave the room.
Just wait for my suggestion.
It's very, very good. I do apologise. Two cards being passed from the good effect me. That's ridiculous. But otherwise, I've asked Nigel. Oh, that's very good. So, what else? Okay. Just a bit. I'll be a little bit again. Those who may be, I do apologise so much. You'll now go back to figure item 2, which is in reality, probably to have exactly the same argument debate at the chief executive. I don't really think that we need to establish, we've just had the debate on the generality today. So it's whether we want this to apply option 1 or option 2 to the chief executive as well. And Sally, if you just introduce us.
Yes, of course. So thank you.
Assuming that we have retained.
Absolutely. Yes. So in line with our constitution, it leaves me to separate out the chief executive's pay because that's for good governance. And noting that the chief executive is now led the meeting. And please may I say that the option 1 and 2 are the same. However, there is one new piece of information in the interest of transparency and correctness that I need to bring to your attention. In my previous submission, I relied on the NJC 3.8%, and it's right and proper that I tell members that the NJC equivalent for chief executives has actually come out at 3.5%. So it's very small detail, but I think it's only right and proper that that's not reflected in the paper, and that I bring that detail to your attention. So we could governance. But it then calls attention to whether members wish to go with option 1 or option 2, noting the new information about this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We've had significant debate. I'm not sure we need to debate again. So I'm just going to go straight to the vote. If colleagues don't mind. Yes.
What we voted on, given the information that Sally's just given us?
Well,
We voted
the information Sally gave was about the national. That's in some ways less relevant to Archie because it's just information. It's not relevant to our decision making. The recommendation is 1925 or 3.88%, which will be in line with heads of service and up to directors. This is effectively saying chief executive gets the same pay rise as the rest of the senior team. That's in essence what's on offer with option 2, and option 1 is 1925.
No, sorry, I understand that, but given the new information, presumably there could be a third option.
I think it's just for information. Sort of, I gave you information about the NHS is paying 5.5% because there's other organisations paying different amounts of money. I don't think there's any weight attached to that. Someone has
No, I think that there should be a prize to the facts, so that I'm being completely transparent and you don't find this outside of committee. And the members, I found that information, that was the final outcome yesterday. So it's new information, important information. But it has been the custom, Chairman, for the committee to mirror for the chief executive what they've done for the executive. Just to give you that history, that's all I'm doing.
Because that's one of my assumptions that the chief executive pay increase would be no different from the rest of the senior team. Hasn't been in the past, as far as I'm aware. Some of the time then coming back to your point, Sally, about equal pay for equal work, time sometimes that is challenged in a sense is at a time of recruitment of a new chief executive, taking into consideration the market conditions and or whether the job title has changed. If you remember John Wood, for example, had a different role to Matley, and pay was therefore affected. So they're not right.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one thing. Obviously, this decision is made in light of the decision that we've had. Given my views about this and the views I've already expressed, I will be abstaining from this vote.
You can stay in this vote. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Colleagues, any further comments? In which case, I shall still vote for option 1. That's fine. We will go through the vote properly and make sure the views are held. So, option 1, just clarity, which is the option 1925 for the chief executive. Option 1. Option 2 is 3.88% increase. Colleagues, those in favour of option 2, which is the recommendation, can you please let me know which way? Thank you. And are those against? And just for record, Oswell and Representative Labour Group against, and any abstentions? And Alison representing the Labour Group is abstaining. Okay. Thank you very much. I think. No. Item 3.
Yes, for future work for space
Future work.
up to matter.
Okay.
And so I'll defer to Deborah to keep us honest in terms of order, but we'll wait for the Chief Executive to rejoin as well, please, before we commence. So I certainly have on telly.
Just one. It's okay. Yes, we're online. Douglas here and joke about what has been agreed, so unhelpful. Option 2 is great. It's fine. So, Sally, really. Oh, right. Yes, we do.
Yes.
And would you like to read that out? Oh, fantastic. Under section 184 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded. Sorry, Deborah.
The she needs to come back. Will it be any
No.
more?
No,
Right,
it's not.
that's it. That's it.
I think, yeah, so, you know.
Thank you. Thank you for coming this morning.
Okay.
So you don't want the rest of the guff then? All right, then, fair enough. Yes, they'll work across it. Yeah, I will read it out. Publicly excluded from the meeting with the following time. The vote class will be turned off, but it was before they listen to me giving this out, I don't know. Excluded from the meeting with the following items business on the grounds that they involve likely disclosure of consent information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 3 of Part 1, Schedule 12A. And set out. The public interest in the intended exemption outweighs the public interest to disclose the information. So at this juncture, apologies, we're going into Part 2, which means that the webcast will be turned off and all press and non-council membership or executive membership be asked to leave the meeting. Thank you.